Y encaramos ya la recta final de esta tercera edición de la Barcelona Women Acceleration Week 2023. Antes de las conclusiones finales vamos a asistir a una sesión muy interesante en la que conoceremos diferentes formas de apoyar a las mujeres empresarias en países frágiles o asolados por conflictos. Este encuentro identificará experiencias, medidas, maneras de apoyar y de mejorar el apoyo a las pequeñas y medianas empresas dirigidas por mujeres en este tipo de regiones, en este tipo de países. To address all these issues, I give the floor to Dania Saliba, Communication Officer of ASCAME. Dania?
Thank you indeed. I'm Dania, and I am in charge of communications at the Association of Mediterranean Chambers of Commerce and Industry, or ASCAME for short. And thank you all for being here at the factory and following the session online as well. We are at the BINTERNATIONAL session, so we are going to talk about entrepreneurship and women entrepreneurs from a global perspective, specifically about what happens with women entrepreneurs in vulnerable states and what can we do to improve their situation. And to do so, we have an amazing panel of experts with us. Thank you all for being here. Welcome. I'm going to start by introducing each of you. First of all, we have Carmen Geha. She's the founder at the startup SOLTARA Consulting, which focuses on women's dignified inclusion at the workplace. She's a senior migration researcher at Pompeu Fabra University and an expert on the Arab, Middle East, and North Africa. And she's a distinguished academic and author. She has been a visiting scholar at Harvard University, Brown University, and the Institute for Advanced Study. Welcome, Carmen. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Dania.
Next, we have Helena de Felipe. She is the president and founder of AFAEMME, the Federation of Business Women Organizations in the Mediterranean, which currently brings together 63 business women organizations from 23 Mediterranean countries. She's also the co-chair of ASCAME's Women Entrepreneurs Commission and a member of the European Economic and Social Committee and vice president of the Group of Women in Equality. And she's vice president of the Confederation of Spanish SMEs, the Catalonian Federation of SMEs, the Catalonian Employees Confederation, among many others. Hello, Helena, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Up next, joining us online, we have Clara Gruitrooy. Correct me if I didn't say it right, please. She's the co-founder and secretary general of the Euro-Mediterranean Arab Association, which focuses on fostering socioeconomic cooperation between Germany and the MENA region. She's the president of the Berlin section of Working Moms, an association for mothers on leadership positions, as well as the president of Berlin section of Feminine Pluriel, an association for diversity and international leadership. She has received several awards, and her commitment and dedication, including the nomination for the Emotion Impulse Giver of the Year and the award Germany Land of Ideas. Thank you, Clara, for being here. And last, but of course not least, we have Hen McGee. She's the coordinator of social and economic affairs at the Union of Mediterranean Confederation of Enterprises, or BusinessMed. And she's also the president of the Control Committee of the International Union of Socialist Youth, a board member of the Arab Women's Network for Parity and Solidarity, and a co-founder and a coordinator of MENA Latina Cooperation. Welcome. Thank you for being here. So I think that to start, I'm going to give a very brief introduction, just some ideas that I think you will want to build upon, but just so the audience understands what we're talking about when we talk about vulnerable states. So my definition, and I would love to know if you have a different one, but basically I'm thinking about regions where citizens are left exposed to a series of shocks, whether we're talking about war or climatic disasters or poverty. And the indicators to decide whether a state is vulnerable or not are many. But in this context, I think it would be interesting to look at it from the perspective of Sustainable Development Goals, basically because we're at BWAW, we are at the factory, we just hub for innovation. So it's worth it just not just look at where we are right now, but also where we are going. And in that regard, the issue is that there are many countries that are lagging behind when it comes to the 2030 agenda. And this means that they are vulnerable states right now, but most importantly, that there will continue to be unless some things change, right? And that's why we are here to talk about what's the situation and what can change. So Sustainable Development Goals, number 5 is gender equality. Number 10 is to reduce inequalities. And I think one of the answers to both of those issues could lie in the same idea, which is basically the inclusion of women in the economy. And in ASCAME, which we work with the Mediterranean, and what we see is that there are many differences between Mediterranean countries. In fact, some Mediterranean countries show that their women's per capita income is still among the lowest in the world. But at the same time, 1 in 3 Mediterranean startups is either led or created by a woman. So this shows that the skills are there and the ideas are there. Yet, according to the United Nations, only, I think it's 7% of venture capital is dedicated to women-led business. So what this tells us is that we need to create more inclusive economies because women have the potential to, especially in vulnerable states, they have the potential to create a positive impact on their communities and to create employment and create stability and all of that. And so I think, Maria Elena, the first time that I heard this, I heard it from you, which is that women's inclusion in the economy is not only the right choice, it's also the smart one. So in that regard, I would like to start by asking you, as the co-chair of ASCAME's Women Entrepreneurs Commission, you often talk about how the key to foster women-led entrepreneurship is access to financing and to connections. So I would like to know what you do from AFAEMME in that regard.
Yes, thank you very much, Dania. Thank you. I think it's very important to have 2 concepts. Why we have so low level of women entrepreneurs in these kind of areas, and as you said, the question, access to finance. Access to finance is not easy only in Europe, but it is difficult, especially difficult because they don't have a background, they don't have assets. And what happens? The banks, they are not specialized on these kind of issues. For this, they say, okay, you have this, I cannot give you that. But the problem really is that more of the times women are not so confident because they know by the background that is so difficult. For this, I think it's important that business women organizations that they are based, for example, in AFAEMME we have as members 63 members women organizations from 23 Mediterranean countries, that they are giving good support, but not only giving confidence, but giving the real life that they can go to the bank, they can have a very business plan, and especially a financial plan. I think this is the first point. And as you said, the second part is the network. The network. If you, okay, you know a lot of people, you know a lot of women, entrepreneurs, businessmen, businesswomen, but who knows you? And this is the point when companies or another stakeholders or maybe people that you can share your knowledge, you need to know them. And for this is one of the barriers, especially in the Middle East and North Africa, that part of the life we have personal life, professional life, but the institutional or this networking kind of life is not easy to achieve.
Thank you, Maria Elena. And Carmen, as you are an expert on the MENA region, are there some best practices that you would like to highlight when it comes to employers in that region, and how do they apply inclusive policies?
Absolutely. Thank you, first of all, for inviting me, and thank you for including this session for women in weak states. And the best practice that we've gathered in the last 15 years in the region is that entrepreneurship is a very important strategy. It is good for the GDP, but it should not be an alternative for changing policy structures and practices at the employer level. And even though the states in these countries are very weak, and when we say weak state, it means that there's not sufficient financial regulation, legal regulation, safety and security for working women, even things like safe transport is not guaranteed. At the same time, there is a movement of employers that we have been working with, thousands of employers that are convinced that hiring women, retaining them and promoting them is the right thing to do. So it's very important when we think of women's employment to think first of all about women's dignified employment. We don't want women working in sweatshops. We don't want entrepreneurship to be the only option for women to access the job market. market. Not all women will become entrepreneurs, particularly women that are migrants, refugees. The region is host to one of the largest refugee populations per capita in the world. And so the best practice is to work with existing private sector employers, non-for-profits, universities, banks, and hospitals and schools that want to amend their policies specifically around the recruitment of women, their retention, and their promotion. And in that crowd of employers, there are many, many businesses and many HR managers, both men and women, that are convinced that this is the right thing to do. And in doing that, we start to think of employment more as a supply chain. And we remove the burden of countering exclusion from women themselves. It should not be up to the women to open businesses so that they can sustain their families. They should also have access to the job market and have social security and have safe transport to work and have regulations that combat against violence at work, harassment, pay gap, so on and so forth. And so it's very important, and I'm very happy to be on this panel of decision makers who are working on the region on entrepreneurship, but also to emphasize that we cannot forget reforming the formal economy, and we should not wait for governments to make that change. We can work with employers in the Middle East and North Africa, and that's been working.
Fantastic, thank you. Clara, in that regard, I'm curious to know what's your expertise in the Arab-German Women's Network and mentoring.
Yes, I totally agree. I hope you can hear me well.
Sorry?
Can you hear me well?
I think we are losing you a bit. Let's see. Can you?
Yes, I will. You're talking?
Yeah, now, let's see. Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Okay, we will give it a try. So your question was about the Arab-German Women's Network and if I have contributions. So first of all, thank you so much for having me, and good to see some familiar faces again and also some new impulses. I totally agree with anything that has just been said. Of course, since I live and work mainly in Germany, I also have a German lens and perspective here. And what I can see is there's so much women have and can learn from each other, right? In our Arab-German Women's Network, we have so many different role models. We have a 10-year-old mentoring program between female startups and experienced business women, both from North Africa and Germany. And currently, we are working on developing this program even further around the whole Mediterranean basin, let's say. And we are also trying really to enlarge the scope, not only the regional scope, but also how and whom to reach. My former speaker, you were mentioning also to give women access to the job market other than becoming an entrepreneur. And this is also now a pilot project that we are including into our mentoring program, how to tackle women who have important positions or who are seeking to having important positions in public or private companies or corporates all over the Mediterranean, and also to giving them the last push with the tool of mentoring.
Thank you, Clara. And I would like to start by giving you a platform to talk about the work that you do yourself and that BusinessMed does as an organization to promote women's inclusion in the Mediterranean countries and economies.
Are you addressing me again? Sorry. Or are you talking to Han?
To Han, yeah.
Yeah. So thank you for inviting me to take part in this panel and discuss the main ways to support female entrepreneurs in fragile and conflict-affected countries. So as we mark International Women's Days, it's important to reflect the progress we have made toward women's rights and gender equality, but also the challenge that remain, particularly for women, to have an effective role in entrepreneurship and inclusive economic growth. So we are aware that female entrepreneurs are vital actors to build resilient community. However, women in fragile and conflict-affected countries face unique challenges that block their ability to start and grow their businesses. So so one of the key elements to, according to our to the experience and to the main work of BusinessMed. So the key element to support female entrepreneurship is to focus on renewed financial inclusion by enabling them to have access to transaction account in their own cities and facilitating access to the financial service and loan to develop their business. So, and we know that, unfortunately, women are less likely to participate in the labor forces in the South Mediterranean countries. So with the female labor force participation rate ranging from 19% to 48%. So it's a new method, proposing a new method to finance women-led businesses and formal work is crucial to have resilient economic models. So it's important that business organization and private sector design more programs that are gender responsive and assist women entrepreneurs to develop their business, taking into account their market, the market, cultural and social barriers. So as BusinessMed, we developed several programs and initiatives to empower women to start their business by benefiting them from training cycle to conclude their business plan and having grants to develop companies and offer service and products. So in 2022 in BusinessMed we empowered more than 200 female entrepreneurs with training cycle taking into account the specific need and challenge that they are facing in 3 countries like Egypt, Tunisia, and Lebanon. Also, sub-granting schemes were managed through through InvestMed project and developing the capacity of 25 female entrepreneurs from these 3 countries with financial aid and starting from 10,000 euro to 20,000 euro. So private sector innovations are more than needed to assist women entrepreneurs in accessing financing to either launch or expand their businesses.
Fantastic, and I'm still with you, and you have mentioned some of the things that BusinessMed does, but you have also mentioned that there are specific challenges in each country. So do you think that there are strategies that have proven most effective overall, like across the countries, and which ones will that be?
Yes. So, as you mentioned, that that we should take into account many conditions, because female entrepreneurs in rural areas, it's not has not the same condition that female entrepreneurs in a city, and we have also educational barriers. So female entrepreneurs working on traditional sectors, or it's not the same. They have not the same condition and barriers than women working on startups or other sectors. So it's important to highlight the difference between the sectors that women entrepreneurs are working, the place from the place of the businesses implemented, the place of implementation of this business, the countries also. So it's we cannot generalize that we have the same solution and support for female entrepreneurs from Egypt than the other from Lebanon or Tunisia. So we have different legal framework, different promoted sectors. So we should usually take this into account and develop And it's important in this country to allocate budget to develop new sectors and to guarantee the equal chances for these female entrepreneurs around the countries in conflicted, affected countries or fragile countries.
Fantastic, thank you. Carmen has mentioned education. So what do you think is the role of universities in that regard? How should be applied, or how should research benefit be applied to co-creation of inclusive workplace policies for women?
Yeah. So it's important when we think of these countries to think that there are so much structural barriers that the women alone cannot shoulder. A lot of the programs that are focused on the Southern Mediterranean are focused on empowering the women themselves. But even if the women are empowered, if they leave the house and they can get murdered, or if their boss harasses them and there's not a law to protect them, or if there's violence at home, even if those women are empowered, we alone cannot change social structures. And here comes the role of businesses and of universities to work together. First of all, to produce gender disaggregated data, not just at the national level, because we have numbers like 20% of women in Lebanon participate in the labor force. It's one of the lowest in the world. But that number doesn't tell us enough about the barriers that women face and does not explain which sectors like STEM or education or healthcare or banking or other might be more inclusive of women. Universities can step in, and it is a win-win for universities and for the private sector to co-create the questions that have not been tackled in these empowerment programs, such as bringing in women's voices into the conversation to understand what happens at home and understand what happens at work, but also to work with the converted companies, because many companies in the region want to make an effort, despite that there is not a government regulation. They are converted, just like companies in Europe. The difference is in Barcelona, and I am learning because I'm new here, that there are government regulations around equal pay and equal opportunity. But many companies will struggle and say, we are at a loss of how we can recruit women and women migrants, and it's the same in the Arab region. So universities have a huge role, not just in educating women, but in flipping the empowerment model from placing it on the burden of the women themselves, on working moms that still handle the largest portion of care in the Arab world, to putting the burden on decision makers, on recruiters, on HR managers that have women employed and tell me all the time, yeah, but women don't apply for promotion. And I say, well, do you have, promotion? Do you advertise senior positions? No, it occurs through wasta, corruption. But they want to learn to do it better. And I think universities can step in a very meaningful way, particularly when we talk about the SDG agenda and the ESG agenda, because increasingly companies want to work in the region to counter the gap that governments are leaving behind in order to recruit and retain and promote women. And so we can help through research at a university setting, but also through mobilizing, because universities are conveners. And many times, because of the weak governments in this country, universities are the spaces where a lot of the international organizations will engage. A lot of the conversations around SDGs take place. And this is where we can begin to put not just a new narrative, but a roadmap where the shoulder of change is on decision makers, not on the women themselves.
And in that regard, Maria Helena, I mean, we're talking about structural problems and about governments. As an expert, are there any recommendations that you would highlight to institutions and to administrations?
Yes, I think it was, February 2021, it was reestablished, the new agenda for the Mediterranean. And there is a big hole that we are talking about women, but we are not talking about promoting or to pushing women in the economic life. And for this is one of the parts that as policymakers we are tackling, because if we don't have, as it was said by Carmen and our colleagues, if you don't have in the policy make points that what you have to follow, nothing will happen. The other point is that we don't have numbers. We cannot count. We don't know how many women are doing, establishing entrepreneurships and companies. We don't have this in different countries. For example, in Egypt, in Jordan, we don't know. And for this, I think the special businesswomen organizations, they are doing a very, very good job, because they are promoting them, they are following what they are doing, because most of the times, you know, most of the women who have started a company in the Arab world or in the North Africa, Middle East, they have at least 2 careers, one in the United States, another in their country, or another one, and they are very well prepared. But what happened with the labor market? The labor market is not so easy, especially because it's founded by men, following by men, and there are not networks for women there. And for this, I think this is the point, that we have to find how to measure in which point we are when we have to be. And the other one is we have to focus in the policies at a national and international level.
Mm-hmm. And talking from an international level, Clara, are there any challenges that you would highlight faced by women entrepreneurs in vulnerable countries? And how do you think feminist development policy can help address those challenges?
Yes, you have just mentioned the keyword of last week in Germany. Feminist foreign policy is the new term that has been launched by our Minister for Foreign Affairs, Annalena Baerbock, and also our Minister for Economic Development Policy, Svenja Schulze. So the two ladies, they have for the past year developed a strategy on having a common foreign policy, feminist policy. And this is nothing totally new. We have learned a lot from other countries and been in consultation processes. But what can be said is that from now on, for the next year, 85% of the funding spent in the MENA region will be spent on female or women sensitive or transformative projects. And this is something very important, I guess, because it's all about the money we have heard. It's about financial inclusion as well. And 85% of the funds, all projects have to show and to a track record and to prove that women have been reached and actively addressed in such a policy. And this is something, well, for me, I have been doing it a lot. Many organizations have been doing it a lot, but it's really something that now is measured, and no one, I think there will be a lot of progress in that regard. This is something that I would like to highlight. I would also like to highlight for the challenges, it's always a question about having, of course, not only the power to start up a business, it's also the question of endurance and to maintain and to keep the business growing. I mean, having a startup is already a challenge, but being in a vulnerable state, not having the conditions is quite hard. We are currently working with female organizations in Sudan, also to having a Sudanese mentoring program. And we are advising them how that could work from our experience on. And what we see there is no role models, okay? And it's really important, I think, also for women to having supporters and role models. And talking about supporters, if you allow just the last remark, since we are also currently witnessing the UN conference in New York about women's and women's rights, and I'm a big fan of the UN initiative He for She. I think it's very good that women are brave and women are strong, and that we have feminist foreign policy and programs. At the same time, I feel men should also stand up now and take responsibility. Equality is a human right, and it's also really there's estimations that really the economic growth of especially vulnerable countries can considerably progress if women are really a part of the labor market. And I think this is so convincing. I don't know why, but I think there should be more men also saying, I'm a strong supporter and I want that.
Great, fantastic. And Hen, we are, of course, talking about raising awareness about women's situation. But I would like to talk about digitalization too. And what do you think is the role of digitalization improving the access of women entrepreneurs to markets and finance?
Digital actions are playing an important role in supporting women entrepreneurs. So by developing digital tools and platforms, we can help women to overcome many of the challenges that they are facing and achieve greater success to their business. So at BusinessMed, we have taken significant steps to empower female and young entrepreneurs through our projects. And specifically in IPSOMED project, we developed the BCT platform, which is an online information service platform designed to support and promote trade and investment in the Mediterranean countries. So this platform serves as a digital tool to connect entrepreneurs from various countries and sectors and develop their skills through learning models. So it's important to manage, to develop the skills of entrepreneurs and to facilitate the B2B meetings, so business meetings, and provide it will provide them with new opportunities for partnership and access to new markets. So we are aware also about the importance of promoting women entrepreneurship. So as a result, we have developed a special tag on the BCT platform called Women-Led Company, so which located under the partnership section of directory of subscriber. And this tag helps women entrepreneurs stand out and enables other businesses to find them more easily and promoting greater visibility and potential for partnership. So, digitalization, and we saw that digitalization was an innovative and efficient tool to face many crises like the health crisis and to minimize the cost of being or to reduce the barrier to have access to other markets, or to reduce the cost of marketing fees to permit these entrepreneurs to have new opportunities.
And Carmen, what do you think happens once these women have those skills and they migrate and they have to relaunch their careers? What happens then?
So I'll speak a little bit about my own positionality. I left Lebanon almost a year ago, and I've been doing research since on women's migration from the Mediterranean, particularly from places like Lebanon and Libya and Syria. Women leave these countries already as second-class citizens, and in displacement and forced displacement, women tend to lose what existing networks they might have already had and what existing gains in their careers. They end up being dispersed. My research is revealing more this word, that they are dispersed, they are not yet a diaspora. And I think that the formula is very similar, working in the region or working in Barcelona, which is the same. We need to work on structures in the formal economy that grant equal opportunity so that endurance is not only on women, so that the burden is not only on women, because not all women will be entrepreneurs. And entrepreneurship should not be at home or in displacement, the only entry to the formal marketplace. It should not be the only way to access a wage. So to open a hairdresser, or to open a restaurant, or to open a digital company, it should not be the only way to access a wage. And so what I'm realizing from women migrants, particularly in the last 3 to 5 years, given the collapse in many parts of the region and increased violence, is that women, when they migrate, they are lonely. Many times they don't understand very well entry to the market. I'm very lucky because I migrated as a high-skilled migrant. Barcelona Activa welcomed me with open arms to teach me about taxes, to take languages, but not all migrants are as privileged. And I think it's very important to follow the same formula, whether it's in the southern Mediterranean or this side, and that is to work with local businesses to give them the business case, because yes, more women working is good for the GDP. We know this. It has been proven in the books in the last century. It's also good for sustainability and development. It is also the right thing to do, because we don't want to leave women at the margins of the economy, that they end up working either in informal jobs, and this is true, by the way, in migration and in the countries that are sending off these migrants. We need to work together with decision makers. If they are convinced at the government level, great. If not, if a country doesn't have a legislation on sexual harassment, it doesn't mean that companies cannot develop a code of conduct. And on this side of the Mediterranean in Barcelona, the government stipulates equal pay, equal opportunity, but many times neither the employer nor the applicant will know, and we can work on doing that match. We cannot replace structural reforms, safety for women, dignity, recognition of care work by only pushing women to go and have their own businesses. And neither the numbers prove it, nor the societal barriers prove it. And I think what we're seeing when women migrate is a loss of self-confidence, and many times a sense of survivor guilt, and also a sense of we have arrived and then everything should be great, but it's very difficult. And I think that it's very important to gather a network of employers, be it men or women, on this side of the Mediterranean that will explain and that will work with other applicants to create a match. And that creates role models, and that creates opportunity. And that breaks the cycle of women migrants feeling that they are just, at the cusp of the economy. Even though this panel is about conflict and weak states, the problems that we face in the Arab Middle East and North Africa might be extreme, but they're not unique. Oppression, discrimination, these are global problems. And so we need to look at ourselves we need to be seen not as victims, but as survivors of these structures, able to contribute to the countries that we arrive to. And I think Barcelona is a very unique space for that. But not all of my friends that migrated in different parts of Europe would say the same. They feel left out. And so again, I will repeat the same thing. We need to work with universities on meaningful gender disaggregated data, not just big numbers, 10%, 20%, 50%, but really understand those numbers and those nuances. And second, to work within the formal business environment, because the majority of working women will enter the formal market sooner or later. And we are talking about tens of millions of women, whether at home or hundreds of thousands that are migrating. So in addition to entrepreneurship, I don't want to be negative on entrepreneurship. I own a startup, but it is not the only solution. And I think that works in migration as it does in the southern Mediterranean.
Fantastic. Thank you. And Clara, what's your experience from Germany and from German politics supporting women, not only women entrepreneurs, but also women entering the labor market?
Well, first of all, I totally agree that all over the world we have challenges, and until last year I always got the reflection, but you have a female chancellor, so everything is fine. Now we haven't anymore, and I can just say that last Tuesday we have had our equal pay day here in Germany. That means that until Tuesday, women in Germany on average have been working for free as compared to men in equal positions. And we are here in Germany really one of the least countries in Europe with regard to equal pay. Although, yeah, there's a lot of being done, but at the same time in our parliament, there's the least representancy of women in history. We have 35% of women only representing us and making the laws and adopting them. So just to confirm, there's big challenges, and I feel we can also learn a lot from our Mediterranean neighboring countries. Yes, and this is my intention why I have initiated back in 2010, I guess, the Arab German Women's Network, because there's a lot we need to do. Maybe, yeah, a last comment also, what I feel a problem and a challenge, more a challenge because it's a good thing. It's the women who give birth to the children, and it's mainly women who take care and who have the mental load also of combining a career and raising children. And that's why you mentioned in the first place, I'm also a committed working mom, an association all over Germany for mothers in leadership positions. And what I feel is very important is also to create all over really spaces and possibilities for women, not only where to bring the kids during the day, the daycare, or having a solid system to be able also to pursue a career, but it's also having this mindset that both is possible. And I think this is even a bigger challenge in Germany than in other countries, but this is something where I definitely see there's also potential of improving the situation for parents as such, and having a more fulfilling career, because it's challenging.
And Maria Elena, following what Clara has just said, are there any best practices that you would like to highlight from the European Union, but also from business women associations?
European Union, especially external action, they are investing a lot in entrepreneurship, especially when they have a program. More of the time, they say, okay, we need to have half women involved in the programs. Sometimes it's not the policy practices are not so good. For example, I remember we had a program promoting women entrepreneurship in Morocco, especially it was in Casablanca. And the program was a very high amount financed by the European Union, European Commission in this position. And after this, I don't know, 5 years later, no one remember what happened there. And I say, okay, how is possible? Because we have to continue these practices. After this, another program was similar like this, 7 years, 2 years later, with the same portfolio and the same program, and nothing will follow later. For this, I think it's very important. I think it's a recommendation from external action that if they invest a lot of money and invest a lot of efforts and support, they have to follow what is happening about this, because maybe sometimes you think that the point is skills are not the skills, are another points that are relevant for the companies, for in this case, to finance the company. For this, I think it's very important to have a follow what the policies of the European Commission are doing. And good practices, yes. I have our main program that it was labeled by the Union for Mediterranean several years ago. We thought that maybe young women, when we finish studies, it's not university only, it's when they finish the studies, how they know what is a company, why they are with aims to be an entrepreneur. For this, we're starting a program around 4, 5, 6 years that we call Young Women as Job Creators. That the main point was, okay, do you know what is a company? We show you. We show you, and do you want to belong? Do you want to start? This is the part of your life that you want to follow. And we open the opportunity to know all these kind of opportunities.
Thank you, Maria Elena. I believe that we don't have time for any more questions. Time flies when you're having fun. But I want to thank the four of you for being here, and to all the audience for being here at BWAW as well. This was the last session. So I'm giving the floor back to Diego, who's going to give us some insights.
Thank you, Dania, y gracias a todas. Y antes de proceder al cierre definitivo ya de esta tercera edición de la Barcelona Women Acceleration Week 2023, vamos a leer algunas de las conclusiones a las que hemos llegado en estas dos jornadas. Si algo quedó claro, por ejemplo, en la inauguración oficial, es que todo lo que tiene que ver con la BWAW no es que se quede, la intención no es que se queden acciones aisladas, sino que durante todo el año se reivindiquen estos valores. Este edificio, el D-Factory, desde donde hemos hecho todos estos encuentros, es el reflejo claro de la nueva revolución industrial que estamos viviendo, una revolución permanente en la cual la figura de la mujer es una pieza clave en la economía. En términos de innovación, en España no hay tanta disparidad entre hombres y mujeres, sin embargo, sí la hay en internacionalización. De algún modo, nuestras mujeres emprendedoras tienen como asignatura pendiente la conquista del mundo. La pérdida del talento femenino, este es un dato que surgió en aquel momento, está saliendo carísima. En términos de negocio, supuso el 19% del PIB en 2020. Actos como este, como la BWAW, suponen un motor de cambio y empoderan a las mujeres, además de acelerar el cambio hacia una sociedad más equitativa, más justa y poniendo en valor el papel de la mujer en esta nueva era. En la primera de nuestras mesas de ayer llegamos a la conclusión de que tradicionalmente, y esto ha sido muy recurrente a lo largo de las dos jornadas, la presencia de la mujer en los sectores STEM siempre ha sido muy baja. Sin embargo, a día de hoy podemos decir que no solo hay más mujeres, sino que las que se incorporan lo hacen también en otros ámbitos que tradicionalmente estaban más masculinizados, como por ejemplo la ingeniería. Las cuotas de género en las empresas son útiles para romper el techo de cristal y no debemos ver las cuotas como un simple número, sino como una oportunidad a la hora de captar nuevos talentos. Los algoritmos de hoy son la igualdad del mañana. Actualmente ya se está trabajando con ellos con ética y responsabilidad, dos aspectos que cada vez están más presentes en el desarrollo de la tecnología. En nuestra mesa BePublic vimos como hay unas 1.700 alcaldesas en España y, sin embargo, siguen representando tan solo el 22% de alcaldesas mujeres frente a un 78% de alcaldes hombres. La educación es clave para romper estereotipos entre los adolescentes y las jóvenes y la Administración tiene un papel clave para impulsar la formación no solo en este aspecto, sino también en las mencionadas profesiones STEM. Las administraciones públicas en ese camino hacia la paridad deben ejercer de ejemplo, deben ser la punta de lanza. Esta paridad, si se traslada al ámbito privado, mejorará notablemente el éxito de las empresas, pues hablamos de integrar talento y nuevas miradas, lo cual enriquece a las organizaciones. En nuestra mesa Be Creative vimos cómo es realmente importante que en la educación y en la formación de los jóvenes se ponga en valor los hitos de las mujeres líderes. Hay que dar visibilidad a esos referentes no solo en las aulas de los colegios, sino también debe hacerse en las facultades. En nuestra mesa de educación vimos cómo la brecha de género empieza en la educación. En las universidades la mayoría de estudiantes son mujeres. El problema está en que solo una pequeña parte de estas se decanta por las carreras STEM. El principal problema es la captación, en la captación de talento femenino en el sector STEM es la falta de mujeres referentes en estos ámbitos. La única forma de avanzar con solidez es lograr una educación inclusiva y de calidad que desarrolle todas las potencialidades desde las más tempranas edades. Esta mañana en la mesa Be Private hemos visto cómo actualmente hay un 22% de mujeres en puestos tecnológicos en el mundo y en España un 16% de los puestos en ciencia y tecnología los ocupan mujeres. Hay que atraer el talento femenino y acompañarlo, ya que sus carreras profesionales existen fases en las que su crecimiento se detiene. Las mujeres no aplican a los puestos internos por dos causas. Por un lado, la inexistencia de referentes, como hemos dicho, en cargos superiores, y la otra es la conciliación con la vida privada. Debemos trabajar y hacer políticas para compaginar esto. En nuestra mesa de ciencia y salud hemos visto cómo históricamente los estudios científicos han tenido un claro sesgo de género, algo que ahora se está intentando corregir. La paridad supone diversidad y enriquece al equipo médico, pero todavía vemos como, por ejemplo, en los mandos de enfermería un 90% del personal son mujeres. Y para acabar, en las conclusiones, una de las conclusiones que hemos llegado esta mañana en la mesa de B-Finance es que la fuga del talento femenino puede suponer la pérdida de hasta 213 millones de euros al año en España. La independencia económica es de vital importancia para conseguir la independencia financiera de la mujer. Hasta ahora muchas mujeres lo habían delegado en figuras masculinas de su entorno más cercano. Por ello, las actuales líderes del sector financiero deben ser un modelo a través, por ejemplo, de programas de mentorizaje o becas para que las jóvenes aspiren a crecer y se consiga la deseada igualdad. Una igualdad de género en la que insistimos desde la BWAW, ganamos todos. Esta Barcelona Women Acceleration Week 2013, organizada por el Consorci de la Zona Franca de Barcelona y la Fundación INCIDE de las Cámaras de Comercio de España, lanza de alguna manera un mensaje desde este rincón del planeta que esperamos que resuene no solo estos 2 días, sino en todo el mundo a lo largo de todo el año. Os esperamos el año que viene aquí en la BWAW 2024. Muchísimas gracias. Hasta entonces.